You're listening to EPN, the ePodcast Network.
This is Enterprise Radio and your host, Eric Dye.
Welcome to Enterprise Radio. This is Eric Dye. Enterprise Radio is your EPN channel for exclusive interviews with entrepreneurs, small business owners, and top executives who have experienced great success, as well as the sharing of their latest creations, products, and or services that can help you build your business, leading to business success. Which U.S. presidents have been the best and worst economic stewards for our nation, the business community, and the average American family? Which political party has demonstrated superior economic performance while serving in the White House? Which economic principles have led to each president's success or failure? And what have our elected officials and the voters learned from these results? Bulls, Bears, and the Ballot Box will examine these and many other questions. The answers will surprise you. The authors review 80 years of our nation's economic history, from the Great Depression and Herbert Hoover to the Great Recession and George W. Bush, a time period in which the Democratic and Republican parties occupied the Oval Office for precisely 40 years each. This is where the similarity ends. The authors explore this unique comparative opportunity by using historical data as well as statistical analysis to objectively score the presidents and the political parties under their customized ranking system. Using their presidential rules for economic success, they explain the economic stumbles and triumphs posted by these 13 presidents as CEOs of the American economy. Bulls, Bears, and the Ballot Box cuts through all the hyperbole and mantra. It is a must-read for all voters, independents, liberals, and conservatives alike. This book may change your vote in 2012. It will certainly challenge your thinking and mainstream political beliefs. Today we are with the co-author of Bulls, Bears, and the Ballot Box, Lew Goldfarb. Lew is a CPA, business lawyer, law professor, and entrepreneur. Currently, he is professor at the University of Cincinnati College of Law, where he serves as director of the college's entrepreneurship and community development clinic. Lew Goldfarb, welcome to Enterprise Radio.
I appreciate you having me on, Eric.
You're welcome. So, Lew, tell us, what was your primary vision for you in writing this book, and can you share some of your background?
Yeah, I guess in writing the book, it's always frustrated me a little bit that when people vote that they're not fully informed or they're misinformed. So I think one of the things that prompted me to write this book was to try to make for a more informed voter, a more informed electorate, who truly understands how much impact the President of the United States can have on their day-to-day financial situation. I don't think most people realize how much impact the President can have on their pocketbooks. And so we're hoping that our book can shed some light on that the President can have a significant impact. And we're hoping that after reading our book, maybe we'll persuade some voters that they need to make voting in their economic interest a priority in the next election. So my background, as you mentioned earlier, I've done quite a few things in my life. I was a CPA for 5 years right out of undergraduate, worked for Arthur Andersen Company, and then I decided to go to law school, went to the Ohio State University College of Law, and worked for about 18 years practicing law. Practiced in a big law firm, and then spent most of my legal career at Honda of America, the automaker, doing transactional work for their manufacturing companies, and I also managed their intellectual property group. And then the entrepreneurial spirit took over, and I actually started my own business. I always wanted to own and operate my own business, which I did for a few years, and then I eventually sold my business and got into teaching. Kind of a midlife career change for me, going into teaching. And for the last few years, I've been teaching at these entrepreneurship clinics. And I just started 2 years ago. I started an entrepreneurship clinic here at the University of Cincinnati College of Law, where third-year law students get hands-on practical experience representing businesses who otherwise could not afford lawyers. and the clients get our services for free. So it's a real win-win situation. We help businesses who need the help and can't afford it, and hopefully through our efforts we'll help some community development efforts in and around the Cincinnati area. So that's a little about me.
And very interesting. Now, is the Republican legend of economic dominance over the course of time accurate?
Well, based upon our study in our book, and we look at 80 years of economic history of the presidents from Hoover through George W. Bush, 40 years when the Democrats held the Oval Office, and exactly 40 years when the Republicans held the Oval Office. And we use objective, fair economic data to compare and evaluate all the presidents and their respective political parties. So your question, based on our numbers, the Republican economic dominance looks to be a myth. Based upon 12 different economic indicators that we use in our book, actually the Democratic Party has fared better than the Republican Party on 11 of those 12 economic indicators. So it's pretty one-sided in our study. So I'd venture to say that the idea of the Republicans being better for the economy is a myth if you really look at the numbers.
Why is it that the Democratic Party, who have a solid message, do not do a more effective job of conveying their message?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I think that it has to do with, Democratic candidates, their campaign managers, just like the American public, are not fully informed. I think if you looked at the numbers, I think the Democrats, when they saw that they've had positive results for the American public, I think they would stand on their message more. I also believe that the Republican Party is very good at campaigning and messaging. And I think oftentimes what happens is the Republican Party is able to put the Democratic Party back on their heels and have the Democratic Party playing defense and responding to the Republican message, rather than the Democrats getting their own message out, which is a positive message when it comes to the economy.
Today we are joined by co-author of Bulls, Bears, and the Ballot Box, Lew Goldfarb, here on Enterprise Radio, part of the Entrepreneur Podcast Network. You talk about the 3 pillars in your book. What are those 3 pillars?
Yeah, we like to evaluate presidential economic performance under 3 different pillars, looking at the economy from 3 different perspectives. And we like to look at it from a business owner's perspective under what we call our business prosperity pillar. We look at it kind of from the average family's perspective under what we call our personal wealth pillar. And then we look at from kind of the 10,000-foot level at a macroeconomic level, looking at our financial health pillar. And we choose economic indicators under each of these pillars that measure performance from those perspectives. So, for example, the business prosperity pillar, we look at corporate profits. Under the personal wealth pillar, we look at disposable income, average disposable income. Under the financial health pillar, we look at gross domestic product and accumulation of national debt. So, and we talk about these in our book under what we call our PRES rankings, P-R-E-S rankings. PRES stands for the Presidential Rankings of Economic Stewardship. So if the readers of our book will see the PRES rankings throughout the book. And that's how we evaluate the presidents, and that's how we evaluate the parties.
Why is it important for the listener to vote their economic interest, and what do you mean by that?
Well, we think that, most people don't realize how much impact the president can have on every one of on our pocketbooks and on the economy. And hopefully our book can convey that. It's an issue, the economy is an issue that's common to all of us in this country. Sometimes people vote on other issues. They vote on social issues that maybe are important to them, but are not important to everyone in this country. So we think it's important, we would like, for people to take a second look at when they pull that lever in the voting booth, take a second look at how this president perhaps is going to influence their pocketbook and make that a primary criteria for voting for the president. We do think, and you'll see this in our book, that the president who advances policies that strengthen the financial well-being of the middle class is normally the president who does best for the economy. And we talk about the strength, the middle class being an engine that drives the economy. In our book, it's sprinkled throughout the book under what we call our PRES rules. I talked about our PRES rankings earlier. We also throughout the book talk about our PRES rules. PRES there stands for the Presidential Rules of Economic Stewardship, and we give our thoughts on the principles, the economic philosophies that make a good economic steward for the nation's economy.
Lou, who do you think will be the President of the United States of America in January?
Who do I think? That's a good question. I really feel like what happens to the economy between now and November is going to make a difference. I think if the economy, if the unemployment rate is under 8% by November 6th, I think if gas prices do not go much higher than they are now, I would speculate that Barack Obama will be reelected. But that's pure speculation on my part. I don't have a crystal ball.
Exactly. Well, let me ask you this. Where can our listeners get more information, and also where's the best place to purchase the book, Bulls, Bears, and the Ballot Box? It needs to be read.
Well, you can purchase it from a number of different places. You can go to our website, which is www.bullsbearsandtheballotbox.com. Purchase it directly from the website, or you can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and just about any bookstore is taking pre-orders right now for our book, which will be released to the public on July 1st of 2012.
And a perfect time for that to be released. In conclusion, what is one thing you could leave with the listener that would help them cast that economically correct vote, or a one last thought or thing to consider on making that vote in November?
I think it's important that voters become fully informed. They try to understand, what it is that each of the candidate is going to do for them. What are going to be the policies that each candidate is going to implement? And do they believe those policies are going to help them from an economic standpoint? And like I said earlier, throughout history, it seems that those presidents who advance policies that strengthen the economic condition of the middle class normally are better for the economy, for the nation, and for everyone.
He is the co-author of Bulls, Bears, and the Ballot Box, Lou Goldfarb, and the website of reference, once again, is bullsbearsandtheballotbox.com. Lou, thanks so much for joining us today on Enterprise Radio.
Thanks, Eric.
You're welcome. And this is Eric Dye, and you've been listening to Enterprise Radio, a part of EPN, the Entrepreneur Podcast Network. Check us out on Facebook and receive exclusive content that you certainly do not want to miss. And once again, we do thank you for tuning in.
Thanks for listening to Enterprise Radio here on EPN. For more information or to subscribe to this podcast, visit epodcastnetwork.com.
This is the ePodcast Network.
Yeah, there's so many things that come to mind. It's budgeting, it's cash flow, it's profit versus loss. Then there's be first or be big. I mean, there's so many different pieces of advice that people have given over the years. My one piece of advice would be breathe, take a breath, step back. Don't get too involved in the day-to-day of your business because it's really hard to get out of. So the sooner you can step back and be the true entrepreneur, the more successful you're going to be.
The ePodcast Network, supported by the most renowned success stories in business today. Subscribe today and never miss another show on EPN.